Number one is to determine optimal quantities, prices, profits, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, remember we normally use these functions to determine the very best. How many units do we produce for us to be able to maximize our, for example, profit? How do we get maximum profit? So optimization theory, we normally use functions in light of what we call calculus. Calculus to determine the best production points. Very good. That's number one. Number two, ladies and gentlemen, we also use functions. We also use functions to determine equilibrium. We use functions here to determine equilibrium points. Equilibrium points. That is the point at which, of course, if you remember, at equilibrium, remember, at equilibrium, we have the supply function being equal to what here, somebody? Demand function. Being equal to demand function. Supply function will always be equal to demand function. Once you have, in this case here, the two functions equated, then we'll be able to get what we call an equilibrium. What here? We shall be able to get what we call an equilibrium point. So to determine equilibrium points, basically here in econometrics here, or economics, like that. Economics, like that. Is there any other area ambao wanafunzi wamefikiria? Ladies and gentlemen, functions. We also use functions number 3 to allocate resources. To allocate resources between competing products. Between competing products. We use functions to allocate resources between competing products. Here I'm making reference to linear programming, which specifically uses what we call linear functions. Linear functions. You're right. And number 4, ladies and gentlemen, we also use these functions for purposes of what here? Forecasting. For purposes of forecasting. We use functions for purposes of doing what here? Forecasting, especially under what we call the input. The input-output equations, regression analysis, regression functions, etc. You can also use this business or other functions in business, ladies and gentlemen, for purposes of determining earnings of salesmen. Remember, salesmen, in most cases, salesmen use what here? They use this kind of an equation. We have total earnings equals the basic fees plus the commission per unit multiplied by what your number of units, And you can see so many of you had these points. If you look at the answers you gave here, yes, so many of you had like price setting. Yes, I'll give you a mark for price. Yes, we use functions to set prices. By the way, this reminds me the concept of what here? Break-even analysis. We use functions for break-even analysis. Where we'll ask ourselves, how much price should we charge to ensure that as we sell, we shall be able to recover our fixed costs. We shall be able to cover all costs. Like that. So I'm so sure you mngepata nyinyi wote. Hakuna hata mwanafunzi mmoja angekosea hiyo. That one, I'm 100% assured of that. Now, look at part B of this question. The management of Digital Solutions Limited has sought your advice on the relationship between the company sales and the costs. The following data relating to sales revenue, total cost, and the profit of the company for the last 2 successive years has been provided. So you can see year 07, we can see year 08, where total sales revenue was 40 million in 07, 08, 60 million. Total cost was 32.44. And then we have profits. So note there that fixed costs remain unchanged in the 2 years. So required, they want us to give them the fixed cost of Digital Solutions Limited. And then number 2, the profit, if the total variable cost incurred in the year 2009 are what year? 48 million. So is there somebody who has an idea? If you got this kind of a question in an exam, what would have you done? What would have you done? I would want to give you like 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, please try this question, 3 minutes. 3 minutes, try the question. 3 minutes. I hope you are able to see my screen and you've been able to, for your later revision, it's important that you take a screenshot of this question. It's important that you get to take a screenshot of this question. Very important. You do that. So I'm waiting to hear, Mwalimu, I've gotten the answer. That's what I'm waiting for. So 3 minutes are over. Am I waiting for anything? Or I should just do the question? It's good for you to be forthright and tell me exactly what you need me to do. Some students will tell me, Mwalimu, don't waste time. Please do the question. What do you say here? What do you say here? I'm waiting to hear from you. Am I waiting for anybody who is writing some solution? Or I go ahead and do the question? Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to try this question with you. Allow me to try the question with you. I'm so sure if there was enough time, you could have really hammered the question very well, but this one, just allow me to do it with you here. This is an important thing, very important. Now, when we talk of profit cost relationships, if you remember very well, we have two models here which are very important. Two models which are very important. The first model tells us that our profit will always be equal to total contribution minus the fixed cost that we incur. Total contribution minus who? Minus the fixed cost that we incur. This pi does not stand for 22/7. Pi stands for who? For profit. Pi stands for profit. That any organization that would want to get its total profit earned will always calculate it by taking the total contribution minus the firm's what here? Fixed cost. So how do we get this total contribution? There are two ways. We'll either come and take contribution per unit times what here times number of units minus fixed cost minus F which stands for fixed cost. So this is a very good model which gives us a relationship between profit and number of units, in this case here, that are sold. Units, physical units. So in this case here, we are saying that X stands for sales in units. Sales in units. But when you look at the question that we have, ladies and gentlemen, in our context here, you can see they have not given us sales in form of units. They have given us sales in the form of what here? Somebody's shillings. They have given us sales in form of shillings. So whenever sales is given in form of shillings, this is how we get it. Our profit will be equal to CMR times revenue times the sales revenue minus fixed cost. Profit will be equal to CMR times revenue minus fixed cost. Where remember from your section 2, this CM stands for contribution margin. This CM stands for contribution margin or contribution per unit. Is there anybody who can remind us the formula of getting this CM? Is there anybody who can remind us the formula of getting this CM? Is there anybody who can remind us the formula of getting CM? How do we get CM? How do we get CM? Anybody? By the way, are we together? Are we together? Are you able to hear Mwalimu? Are you able to hear Mwalimu? Are you able to hear Mwalimu? Please confirm by saying yes. Okay, great. Yeah, I've seen somebody who has told us that to get this CM, we normally take the price minus the variable cost. Selling price minus variable cost. Selling price, yes, minus variable cost, yes. Selling price minus variable cost, very important. And this CMR is what we call the contribution, margin ratio. This is what we call the contribution margin ratio. And for us to get contribution margin ratio, normally we take CM divided by who? CM divided by price. We normally take CM divided by price to get CMR, contribution margin ratio. Very, very easy, very important. So in this particular question, what will be applied? Well, the equation which is applicable here is the second equation. Because the second equation is where these guys have given us revenue and they have given us what here? Profit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would want you to read this question and read it very well. Let's read this question together. What do they want us to do in this question? In this question, they are telling us the following data relates to sales revenue, total cost, and profit of the company for the last 2 successful years has been provided. We have year 07. We can see they have given us the total sales revenue. We can see they have given us the total cost. We can see they have given us the total profit. And then they are telling us something that is quite important for us here, which will make us understand that we are dealing with a straight line equation. A straight line equation. They're telling us there, note that fixed cost remains unchanged in the 2 years. Fixed cost remains unchanged in the 2 years. So meaning, ladies and gentlemen, this tells me one thing. This tells me one thing. This tells me one thing. This tells me one thing, that fixed cost here between the 2 years, fixed cost will be the same. If the fixed cost in 07 is 10 million, then the fixed cost for this particular product here in 2008 will also be what here, 10 million. And then remember that straight lines are the ones that behave like this. Y equals A plus who? Y equals A plus who? Y equals A plus BX. That A is ever constant. The other aspects here can change, but A, which in this particular case here is fixed, is constant. So then that tells us that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to make use of this second equation. We are going to make use of this second equation. We shall make use of this second equation, which tells us that our profit equals CMR times revenue minus fixed cost. And you're in agreement, all of us, that straight away, even if this is a negative, straight away, this is a linear function. It's a straight line function. And if it is a straight line function, could you kindly help Mwalimu by telling Mwalimu here, how many points do we need for us to be able to define a straight line? How many points do we need for us to be able to establish a straight line? How many points? I'll repeat again. How many points do we need for us to be able to establish a straight line? How many points do we need for us to be able to establish a straight line? 2 points. Thank you very much. And has this examiner given us the 2 points really? Has this examiner given us the 2 points? Yes or no? Has the examiner given us the 2 points? Yes or no? Has this examiner given us the 2 points? Yes or no? Yes or no? Has this examiner given us the 2 points? Yes or no? Has the examiner given us the 2 points? Yes or no? And if you're saying yes, what makes you think that he has given us the 2 points? What makes you think that he has given us the 2 points? It's because he has given us 2 years. It is because he has given us 2 years. You can see we have year 07 and year 08. Those are the coordinate points that I'll use to be able to establish my straight line. Esther, even if you never wrote whatever I had here, this is the most important formula that you need to write. This is the most important formula that you need to write. And then now, given this formula, you need to come and substitute. You need to come and substitute, and I would want to see where there is anybody who will be able to substitute and give me the first equation using 2007. Could you kindly substitute there and give me the first equation using 2007? What do we have there? Using 2007, what do we have there? Can somebody try to substitute here for me? Can somebody try to substitute there for me? Can somebody try to substitute there for me? What do we have at the end of the day? Equation number 1 using 2007. Equation number 1 using 2007. What do we have, somebody? What do we have, somebody? What do we have, somebody? What do we have, somebody there? What do we have there, somebody? Equation number, just try your best. Even if you don't get it right, so what? Just try your best. Just try your best. Just try your best. Just try your best. I'm not seeing anybody talking to me. I'm yet to see anybody talking to me. I'm yet to see anybody talking to me. I'm yet to see anybody talking to me. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first equation there, I can see the profit is 8,000. The profit is 8,000. The profit is 8,000. So the profit here is 8,000. 8 million, I mean. CMR hatujui. But fortunately, we know the first year's revenue. What is the first year's revenue? Can somebody give me the first year's revenue? Can somebody give me the first year's revenue? Can somebody give me the first year's revenue, 2007 revenue? 2007 revenue. Can somebody give me the 2007 revenue? They have given it to us. Yes, 40 million. So it will be CMR times 40 million minus fixed cost pia hatujui. Fixed cost hatujui. Haya. Using 2007. This is using 2007. How about 2008? How about 2008? How about 2008? So 2008, I can see the profit is 16 million and I'm able to see the revenue is 60 million. Those are the two things that I need. So the revenue is 60, but profit is 16. Equals CMR times 60 million. Fixed cost will be the same. So please go ahead and rearrange this mathematically better. Rearrange this. So it will be 8 million equals 40 million CMR, 40 million CMR minus fixed cost. And then we have 16 million equals 60 million CMR minus fixed cost. From this, and gentlemen, what I want to do is to eliminate fixed cost. I can see vividly that fixed cost has got the same signs, negative, negative. So the only way of eliminating this fixed cost then will be to come and subtract. So go ahead and subtract. So what is 8 million minus 16 million? What is 8 million minus 16 million? 8 million minus 16 million. 8 million minus 16 million. That gives us how much? Because I would want to eliminate that. 8 million negative. Thank you very much. So 8 million negative. How about this? 40 minus 60. That gives me minus 20 million. CMR. This disappears. Meaning that this negative and negative will cancel out. Implying at the end of the day that our CMR will be 8 million over 20 million, which will be 0. What here, somebody? What is 8 million divided by 20 million? 8 million divided by 20 million will give us what figure? 8 million divided by 20 million will give us what figure? Please help me out. 8 million divided by 20 million will give me what figure, somebody? .4. Thank you very much. Now, having gotten CMR, of course, what I'll do is to come and substitute for CMR in any of the two equations for us to be able to get fixed cost. For us to get fixed cost, I'll go forward and substitute for CMR in any of the two equations. By doing that, then we should be able to get what here? We should be able to get our fixed what here? Our fixed cost. So please go ahead, substitute. So from equation 1, can call this equation 1. From equation 1, this is 8 million equals 40 million times CMR, which is 0.4 minus fixed cost. So then this will be 8 million equals, somebody give me this figure. You guys have calculators. I don't have a calculator. 40 million times 0.4 will give me what figure, somebody? 16 million. 16 million minus fixed cost, implying that this 16 million has to cross over. Crossing over, of course, means that it has to take a negative. So it will be 8 million. It will be 8 million minus 16 million equals minus F, implying that F at the end of the day, of course, this will be negative 8 million. F at the end of the day will be positive. What here will be positive 8 million, like that. Now, please read again the question. Read the question again. If you're to read this question, part 1, they wanted us to give them the fixed cost of Digital Solutions Limited, right? So the 4 marks are already at home. Fixed cost is how much here? Is 8 million. 8 million. 8 million. The fixed cost is 8 million. How about Roman 2? Roman 2 of this question, the profit, if the total variable cost incurred in the year 2009 are 48 million. Could you kindly just take a minute to think through this question? It may look a bit complicated, but not really. It's quite an easy one.
This lady turned to my side and she asked me, "Are you in the WhatsApp group so I can see it?" I say, "Yeah."
Okay. Just a minute. Please be able to. Jesse says, is it 16 million? Let me see. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is something that you have to really think about here. There is something that you must think about here. You see, this examiner has given us variable cost, and he wants us to estimate profit. And yet he has given us variable cost. So no problem. I'll be able to really unravel this very easily. One thing that I know for number 2 is that I'll come and write the profit prediction equation. We know that profit is CMR minus fixed CMR multiplied by revenue minus fixed cost of the farm. And you're the ones who have told me that CMR is 0.4. So it is 0.4 revenue that you generate minus the fixed cost, which you guys told me that each year, the fixed cost of the farm, was it not 8 million? The fixed cost of the farm was 8 million, right? So this is the equation. So to estimate profit, we need revenue. We need annual revenue. But you see, the examiner has given us, but we are given variable cost, which equals 48 million. Variable cost, which equals 48 million. That is what they have given us. They have given us variable cost of 48 million. Variable cost of 48 million. Variable cost of 48 million. Variable cost of 48 million or 48 million. So then the very first thing we need to do is to establish this revenue, which is badly needed for purposes of estimating the profit. So first of all, we have to get the revenue. So how do we get revenue out of variable cost? How do we get revenue out of variable cost? There is something which I'll be teaching you next semester in section 5, which is a very important equation that you must cram. You must cram immediately. That CMR plus VCR. CMR plus VCR must always be equal to 1. Very important formula. CMR plus VCR must always be equal to 1. CMR plus VCR must always be equal to 1. Remember that CMR stands for contribution margin ratio. CMR stands for contribution margin ratio. How about VCR? VCR is variable cost ratio. Very important for me. Variable cost ratio. And for us to get this variable cost ratio, we normally take variable cost over revenue. Variable cost over revenue. So I would want you to write these two formulas, and if possible, please try to highlight them up. Please highlight them. Please highlight them. Try to highlight them. Highlight them. They are very important formulas. Very important formulas for us. Two important formulas. Very important formulas for us. Now remember, in this model, we happen to be having CMR. So if CMR is 0.4, what do you think will be the VCR figure? If CMR is 0.4, what do you think will be the VCR figure? If CMR is 0.4, what do you think will be the VCR figure? Yes, 0.6. 0.6 because the 2 must always add up to 1. Therefore, VCR will be 1 minus 0.4, which gives me point what here, somebody? Which gives me 0.6, which gives me 0.6. Thank you very much. And then now I would want us to extend this even further by plugging in this. So we know the variable cost you guys gave me is 48 million. So revenue is the one that we do not know. Revenue is the one that we do not know. So could you kindly then make revenue the subject of the formula here? Could you kindly try to make revenue the subject of the formula? Try to make revenue the subject of the formula, and then you give me the revenue amount. The revenue amount will be equal to who? So if you get crazy examiners, this is how they set some of these questions, right? So somebody called Samson has been able to navigate around, and he has been able to come up with something reasonable, of course. Something reasonable, of course. Something reasonable. So in this case here, then what do we have here, somebody? We have 0.6 revenue equals 48 million. So then revenue will be 48 million divided by 0.6, which will end up giving us what figure? Somebody has already given us the figure. Somebody has already given us the figure, 80 million. Somebody tells us it is 80 million. Now, having gotten this 80 million, now I will very comfortably come and ascertain. The profit value. I'll come and say here, remember my profit equation is 0.4 CMR minus fixed cost of 8 million. No, 0.4 revenue. 0.4 revenue. Now I have the revenue. So it'll be 0.4 times revenue of 80 million minus 8 million. Then at the end of the day, what figures are we going to get at the end of the day? How much are we going to get? 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 Jesse tells me it's 40 million. Jesse tells me it is 40 million. 40 million. Is that true? The final answer, 24 million. 24 million. Thank you very much. 24 million. 24 million. Thank you very much. 24 million. 24 million. Now listen and listen to me very carefully. We've been able to answer that question. Although for you, there are 2 take homes I would want you to take for the sake of your exam, this time around, I would want you to always think about this. I would want you to always think about this, that if you go to a question, you go to an exam, find a question, for example, where they're giving you price is 10, they're giving you variable cost, for example, of 6, they're giving you fixed cost of, say, 4 million, and then you are required here, number 1, to determine the break-even point. Determine break-even point in units. And then number 2, you determine break-even point in shillings. Could you kindly try this? Just try this very fast, especially the first one. Quite fast. Just try it. A minute. I always give you, even if you don't know it, I always give you a minute for you to figure out some of these things. You simply get to figure them out. Variable cost is 6. Variable cost is 6, not 6 million, just 6 per unit. Thank you very much. What the students have been able to remember very fast, is this. That this break-even point in unit is what we call XBE. That XBE will be fixed cost over what year? Contribution margin. X is quantity. And then the students are quite good because they have known very fast that for us to get contribution margin, we normally take price minus who? Price minus variable cost. So the price here is 10. The variable cost is 6. So 10 minus 6, that gives me 4. And then, of course, now we will come and plug in here. The fixed cost is 4 million divided by contribution margin ya ngapi somebody? Contribution margin ya 4. So 4 million divided by 4, that will give me what figure somebody? 4 million divided by 4, that will give me what figure somebody here? 1 million. 1 million. 1 million units. 1 million units. 1 million units. 1 million units, yes. 1 million units. But now, most importantly, I'm so sure this one here, most of us would have gotten this correctly very easily. What most of us will not be able to get very easily is number 2, where they want us to give them the break-even point in shillings. Can I rub this? Yes. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, here we are. So they want us to give them number 2, break-even point, but in shillings. So break-even point in shillings. So break-even point in shillings, what do we have? Of course, this is revenue. And we are quite aware that for us to be able to get the revenue, we normally take price times quantity sold. So do we have the selling price? Oh, yes, we do. The selling price is 10 times quantity sold, which you guys have been able to tell me from this question here that you were able to sell 1 million units. For us to break even, we are able to sell 1 million. Remember, they want us to give them revenue break even. So at break even, we'll take the selling price times quantity at break even, which will end up giving us how much? 10 million Kenya shillings, which will give us 10 million Kenya shillings. Are we together up to there? 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 Yeah, because remember from your quantitative analysis calculus, to get revenue, normally take price times quantity. Price times quantity. However, ladies and gentlemen, there is this other formula which is quite important for your exams, very important for your exams, that you can also come and say that revenue break even equals fixed cost over who? Over CMR. Revenue break even equals fixed cost over CMR. Equals fixed cost over CMR. And this CMR, if you haven't forgot, is there anybody who is able to remember the CMR figure? Is there anybody who is able to remember, not figure, but formula? Is there anybody who is able to remember the CMR formula? Contribution margin ratio formula. Contribution margin ratio formula. Yes, it's CM over price. Thank you very much. So in this question that we are doing here, is there anybody, ladies and gentlemen, is there anybody who is able to remember our CM formula? Is there anybody who is able to remember our CM formula? Not formula, but value. CM value. CM value. We had computed it up there. We had computed this CM value up there. CM was equal to what? Somebody here? CM was 4. So 4 over the price. Price over how much? Price over how much? Is there somebody who is able to remember our selling price? Our selling price, our selling price, our selling price is 10. So then the CMR becomes 0.4. Meaning, ladies and gentlemen, that the moment I have my CMR there, I'll be able to plug it in here to be able to get what here? To be able to get our revenue break even, we need fixed cost over CMR. We need fixed cost over CMR. So fixed cost, tumesema ni ngapi fixed cost? We had fixed cost, if you recall. We had a fixed cost from up there, 4 million. Thank you very much, Paul. Fixed cost was 4 million divided by 0.4. This one at the end of the day will give me how much in terms of revenue? In terms of revenue, this will give me how much? 1 million, are you sure? Have you divided very well, really, Paul? It's 10 million, yes. 10 million, which is quite the same as that we got at first there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen and listen to me very well. Listen and listen to me very well. Listen and listen to me very well. There is an equation that I don't want you to forget. There is this equation which I don't want you guys to forget. This very important equation says that CMR plus VCR must always be equal to who? Must always be equal to 1. So what will happen is this. This examiner will come and give you an example. He'll tell you that the fixed cost is 10 million. He'll come and tell you that VCR is 0.2. 0.2, yes. And then you'll be required to calculate revenue break even. Let me give you a minute. You calculate revenue break even. Could you kindly try? Kindly try to give me this calculate revenue break even. Calculate revenue break even. Could you kindly try? Could you kindly try? Could you kindly try? Could you kindly try to give me this figure? Calculate revenue break even. Calculate revenue break even. Just take a minute and try this out for me. Just a minute to try this out for me. Is there anybody who is able to try this out? So VCR is not a very sweet thing for us. Anytime we see VCR, first of all, you change it to CMR. So if VCR is 0.2, what will be CMR? Here I'm getting a free mark. I can see Rose already has some figure there. So if VCR is 0.2, CMR, then Lillian is telling me that CMR will be 0.8. Once I have this, then I'm at home, because what I'll need to do is to come under, remember the formula. Revenue break even is fixed cost over who? Is fixed cost over CMR. Fixed cost is 10 million over CMR of 0.8, which will end up giving us what figure at the end of the day? What is 10 million divided by 0.8? 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 12.5 million. Thank you, and thank you very much. Now, my greatest students, this was quite an important area that I wanted you to understand. But now we have come to the tail end of our classes. We have introduced what we call a revision boot camp for 1 week. Boot camp for 1 week, 1 week, 1 week. What I would expect from each one of us is that you guys have to go out of your way and look for these students for me. I need us to be about 60. This last 1 week, the last week, we have to be about 60 for us to be able to crush these things very well. We need numbers, we need numbers, we need numbers, and those numbers can only be obtained, of course, using your contacts, yes, using your contacts. And then the other thing that I would want to ask, because now I want to introduce classes during daytime, like tomorrow, have you started your leaves? Have you started your leave? Have you started your leave days? Have you, so like now tomorrow, I have financial reporting at 2 p.m. For those of you who are doing financial reporting, tomorrow I have financial reporting at 2 p.m. I'll be able to share the details. I can only see it's only 2 students who have begun their vacations, 3. I can log in. I can log in. I can log in. I can log in. No leave, okay. Okay. But remember, it's very important, no problem. So as I get started from tomorrow, you need to motivate Mwalimu. Please give us numbers. Give us number of students, any contact you get, make reference to them. They should get in touch with Caro through this number. It's very, very important. Thank you very much.